Fiancée wanted a prenup but changed her mind. I, 33 male, have been with my fiancée, 30 female, for 3 years now. She works for a big tech company and makes over 6 figures. I, on the other hand, work as a car mechanic and makes less than her. I proposed to her about 5 months ago, but she wanted to get a prenup. She feels that she worked hard to amass a certain level of wealth before the marriage, and that she wants to protect it, and I happily agreed. Last night, we got a draft of the prenuptial agreement and had to disclose the assets that we wanted to protect. That's when she found out my assets are worth 15 times more than hers, and now she wants to back out of the prenup. I told her no, especially since she wanted to protect her assets in case of a divorce, and I went through all this process to make it happen. It's okay if my assets are taken away from me, not okay if hers are taken? I felt that it was unfair. She said she felt deceived, that she didn't know that I had so much money saved, and we got into an argument about why I never brought it up. I told her that I didn't know how much money she had either, and asked her why did not disclose that to me. What do you guys think we should do? Now for the top advice. Bro, if she's mad that you have more assets than her and now wants to back out, that is just more reason to get a prenup. Totally agree. She wanted to be secure until she found out she could get a better deal. Says a lot about her character that she suddenly wants to back out now. Laughing my butt off. Couldn't have said it any better. Her actions have exposed her true character. Not only does she want to back out of the prenup, but she is so mad that she hasn't even contacted you in over 18 hours. That would be a huge red flag for me. I'd start thinking about postponing/canceling that engagement. Woof. I would put the marriage on hold until you two have some really serious conversations in premarital counseling about all things financial. You might also make sure you get really deep into other taboo topics like children, work, life plans, politics, intimacy, living together, expectations, etc., in case you don't know each other as well as you think. Time will bear out whether it is a good relationship for your future. It also is a red flag that you haven't spoken in a while since the argument. Stonewalling typically not a healthy conflict resolution strategy. Good luck. This. Clearly, this couple doesn't know each other as well as they thought they did. Premarital counseling and a prenup are going to be absolutely essential for this relationship to work. No prenup is equal to no marriage. And if you have to argue about the prenup, then just end things with her. That's what I ended up telling her. It's been less than 24 hours since the argument, and we haven't communicated. OP is stick to this no prenup, no marriage. She seems shady because the second she found out, she backed out. If she continues to say no prenup, then tell her why not. You want to protect your assets and want to as well. Why don't you want to anymore? But hey, if you end up breaking up because she decided to be control freak now that she knows you're richer, we're here for you. Next story. My ex-girlfriend claims I mistreated her. The title says it all. I dated a girl for 6 months and things were great. But there were a few things about her that bothered me which ultimately resulted in me breaking up with her. They were very simple things, like her not letting me see my friends, her trying to get me to quit my job, or her failed attempts at persuading me to switch my degree program to something easier so she could see me more. The clinginess really turned up to 100 towards the end of our relationship, and I had to call it quits. I told her that I needed to focus more on myself because these years of mine are very critical for my future, and perhaps we can try again later in life. Throughout our entire relationship, I was very passive, actually. She steered the ship entirely, made all the decisions. She chose where we went out to eat, whose house we were at that day, down to the clothes I would wear and the songs we would listen to. This never sat right with me, and I always knew the relationship would end badly. She forced herself into my family way too early as well. Her reasoning behind it was she needed a good family life, because hers was not too great. She has experience with mistreatment from her mother. Anyway, she would text my parents and sister regularly, constantly asking them to go out for dinner and whatnot. I did not like this because 6 months is not a long enough time period to begin hanging out with my family separately from me. Thankfully, my family had seen through this and felt just as uncomfortable as I did. I confronted her about it, and her response was along the lines of, "Don't you want to get married someday? How else are we supposed to get to that point if I don't become friends with your family?" I had never stated I wanted to marry her or ever expressed feelings of a long-term relationship with her. In fact, I had informed her that I simply do not speculate to that degree with anything, especially relationships. Needless to say, she took this as me leading her on. Often, she would tell me how much I cannot do things, how much I cannot afford my car, cannot afford school, or how much she thinks that I won't be happy in the future with the path I'm taking. Unfortunately for her, she never knew my income, never knew the details of my education, or really had any clue what my true future plans are. These are things I keep fairly private to myself. I once told her that I wanted to move out of state. Her response to that was extremely negative, and quite frankly, hurtful. This is why I do not tell people things like that, not even my own girlfriend. Upon ending our relationship, I did it over text. I am not one to reason with people in situations like this, and I am very much a pushover at the sight of tears. However, I was far more afraid of the physical response. She had never hit me before, but I have seen the way she explodes when she gets emotional. Perhaps I just did not want to deal with the situation on a face-to-face level. Instantly, she began to tell me I mistreated her and never listened to her. She explained that, basically, by not doing everything she requested of me, dropping classes, quitting my job, selling my car, that I was insensitive to her beliefs and was going rogue. Apparently, this constitutes throwing around the term abuse. But to me, this devalues that term entirely. There are women and men who go through so much trauma with their significant others, so much pain and suffering, unimaginable pain and suffering. Why would she ever say this? Immaturity? My fear is that she will go around telling people that I was horrible to her from now on. Things circulate rapidly in my college town. Each and every day we, thankfully, take mistreatment more and more seriously, as we must do, and it significantly destroys the offender's life, as it should. But what if she continues to tell people that I was that person? What if school hears about this? What if my job does? What would the police have to say about it in the event her words make their way to them? I do not want to have my life completely derailed over a false claim. I also do not like that term being devalued. My best friend has already told me she sent him a large text containing a narrative on me mistreating her. He just blocked her phone number and went straight to me. This isn't fair to me because, if anything, I was the one mentally mistreated for months, and I never had my chance to confront her about it. It took one for her by just breaking up with her, and this is how she repays me? I have kept my mouth shut in regards to her because I do not talk about exes negatively. What should I do? Just remain calm and hope for the best? Odds are nothing bad will come from it, but more needs to be said on the topic of false claims. Was her claims via text? If so, don't delete it. Basically, the way you worded it almost sounds like an admission of guilt. You mistreated me by not doing everything I told you to do, and you went rogue. That's not a mistreatment. If it's not via text, there are two options you can take that I see. 1. Do nothing. Your character can leave it up for others' judgment call. If they want to distance themselves from you and you give your defense, so be it. Second thing you can do, try to get ahead of it. Can you contact someone that works at the school about the situation? Explain to them that she's attempting to weaponize the claim simply because you chose to break up with her. A third viable option might be to text her and get her to reply through text. I just want a clean breakup. How is that abusive? Or something like that. Her claim is an attempt to control you. Reading your email, her control is a theme. Everything she's going to do moving forward is an attempt to assert control. Best way to thwart this is 0% contact. Save the text, ignore her, and 0 contact. You may want to reach out to those close to you, parents, friends, etc., and let them know your ex is taking things badly and may reach out. I'd also let your manager/HR department know. Keep it simple. You ended a personal relationship and your ex didn't take it well, and you are concerned they will reach out in an attempt to damage your reputation. You might also want to research a lawyer, in case she makes the accusations public or goes to the police. It's doubtful she will take it to that level, but if the police show up at your door, you want to have a number to call immediately. If she goes public, you want to consult with them on appropriate responses. Just block her and everything and ignore her. You can't control what she does, but if she wants to waste her life trying to control people, that's on her. If she has any friends or family, maybe reach out to them and make them aware that she's being like this, but that you've cut off contact. Most likely, anyone in her life knows the way that she is. Especially share this post. That's pretty much all you can do. Sorry you're dealing with us. Most likely, anyone in her life knows the way that she is. You can usually count on people to have common sense. Let the loud people be loud, and at least 80% of people will be normal enough to realize what's going on. Just stay out of it. Last story is titled, Feeling Unappreciated by My Partner, female 28, and I'm male 34, not sure if I want to continue my relationship of 7 years. So, I've been feeling pretty down about my relationship recently, especially the last 12 months. I feel that my partner takes me for granted and doesn't appreciate what I do for her. I've noticed she has become a lot more nitpicky in the last 12 months, to the point I'm fearing doing things to upset her. We are polar opposite in terms of personality. I'm more introverted while she's very outgoing. I know she has hated this pandemic situation as she feels trapped at home, with rolling lockdowns, etc., but I don't see that as an excuse for her behavior. Examples are, I'm fortunate to be working from home during our latest lockdown. She physically has to go to work, which seems to resent me for. She thinks that I spend all day doing nothing, when in reality I have back-to-back meetings from the morning until I finish work. I've been doing all the housework recently over the last month. Cleaning, cooking, shopping, laundry, managing household bills, you name it, I've been doing it. I don't mind as I don't have a commute now. I have some extra time after work to do these things. However, she is really not appreciative. Rather than thank me for cooking dinner, she will make complaints. This needs more salt, or I wanted a vegetarian meal. Despite me asking her during the day if what I had planned for dinner was okay. She will complain if I don't immediately clean up after dinner. This morning, she woke up in a foul mood over a trivial problem she has to address at work. Complained I hadn't made lunch for her because we were out of food. I offered to go shopping last night, but she said she would get something at work. She made a parade of finding some things to scrape some lunch together. Took the coffee I made her and stomped out the door without saying goodbye. This had been a recurring issue for a while now. We have had a lot of great experiences over the last 7 years. Traveled the world together, all my friends and family know and adore her. But this side of her when we are alone, I don't know if I can tolerate this kind of behavior for the rest of my life, and it makes me incredibly sad. When she's having one of her meltdowns, I'll repeat what she has just said to me. Another example is I can't physically visit my friends because of lockdown restrictions. They wanted to play some video games together for an hour a few nights ago to catch up. Some of my closest friends have some serious mental issues, and I always like to check up on them, especially during these times. She lost it, saying I was just stuffing around and not paying attention to her. So I repeated back that I had cooked dinner for her, cleaned up, spent hours talking to her about her day and problems, and want to spend 1 hour talking to my friends who I haven't seen in a month is unreasonable. She then said, "You always make me sound like I've been a crazy girlfriend," when in my head I feel like she's being a child and unreasonable. If I go spend that hour with my friends, she will then be pissy and give me the silent treatment for the rest of the night for pointing out she was being a brat. Sorry for the rant, but I'm just feeling really horrible at the moment, and not sure what to do. I do love her dearly, and she can be incredibly caring and loving, but this behavior is becoming more common, and I don't know what to do. Now for the advice. Sounds familiar to me. My ex had an avoidant attachment style, and you might be dealing with something similar. We were together for about 5 years, and it was great at first, but as the years went on, she pushed me away, and I'm still heartbroken. I subsidized her lifestyle and ability to pursue her career of choice, and did my absolute best to keep our place clean, even though I am extremely messy. That was never enough, and I was never enough. Her career always came first. I would feel the same fear when she would get home at the end of the day, and I just started drinking a ton, which was no help. I left her and moved to a city that I actually wanted to live in. During the breakup, she told me that she had feelings for someone else and almost immediately moved in with them, on the other side of California. You should not have to live in fear of never meeting her expectations. I'm single now, and it sucks and is depressing in other ways, but I do what the heck I want, so there is that. Same. Married 7 years to a woman with an avoidant attachment, and sounds very similar to me. I'm much happier now. This passive-aggressive BS of giving you the silent treatment, making a big production about meals, etc., is not acceptable under any circumstances. There's only one reason for doing that. It is to hurt your partner intentionally. Do not stand for that. My guess is that she's unhappy, and the way she's feeling is manifesting as this type of terrible behavior. It's perfectly reasonable for you to expect her to behave like an adult and to express the way she's feeling instead of being immature and disrespectful. I would suggest that you ask her to sit down and talk about. Start with asking how she feels and if there's anything she wants to talk about that's making her unhappy/frustrated/angry. Explain how you feel and how her behavior makes you feel. Try not to position it as, this thing you do is awful, and just focus on how you feel in this or that scenario. COVID and endless lockdown is hard on people, particularly if they're very social and extrovert. But it's no excuse to behave poorly and treat the person who you care about the most worse than everyone else. I know she is unhappy. I've discussed it at length with her. A lot of the things she is unhappy about are out of my control, so I'm not sure what to do. She wants to travel, but obviously that is off the cards right now. I've planned a trip with her next month interstate, but there is anxiety if even that will be going ahead. She is also trying to get a more senior role in her organization. She has had 3 interviews for different positions and hasn't got them. These positions are very highly competitive, especially with COVID. My dad always told me to be with someone who you wanted to go through the worst of times with, not just the best of times. This helped me get out of an emotionally horrible relationship I was in, and it was amazing how much better I felt once I made space from that constant negativity. It's funny the way it went down. Was one day she was just so mad and being so mean to me for not being able to hear her from the bathroom, and I just left. The next month was hell. Crashing at friends' apartments, then staying with family for a week, figuring out how to get my stuff together. But I did. And now sometimes I wonder how I ever even ended up in a relationship like that. But it happens. Good luck, man.
Am I the a-hole for kicking out a very vocal child-free flatmate after my wife got pregnant? Basically, my wife and I, 29 male/24 female, bought our own house a couple of years ago and got 2 flatmates in to help pay the mortgage. 2 bedrooms plus ensuite for us to use and 1 bedroom each plus shared bathroom for the 2 flatmates. One flatmate, Alex, pretty much keeps to herself while the other one, Caitlin, 32 female, is quite strongly opinionated and much more social. Caitlin is also child-free and occasionally very vocal about it. It's not constant, but when something child-related comes up, she will interject without fail. Anyway, wife and I were finally successful in conceiving and decided to tell both of our flatmates 3 months into the pregnancy. We chose 3 months as we didn't want to announce it to anyone too early in case of a miscarriage, but also wanted to give flatmates plenty of time to find somewhere else if they understandably didn't want to live with a newborn. In the end, both said they wanted to stay flatting with us as the location is good and the house is newly built, as most houses in my country are cold and damp, turn-of-the-century wooden cottages. Anyway, almost immediately after this, Caitlin begins making snide remarks about our soon-to-be child. Things like she should get a discount on rent for putting up with a baby, she's not going to get any sleep with a baby in the house, we should have told them we were trying, etc. At first, my wife just brushed these off, though I did have a word with Caitlin that they're not appreciated. Since then, the snide remarks became more frequent and rude, like calling us selfish for bringing a child into this world, saying our social lives are going to be over, etc. After a couple months of this, I decided that I didn't want to put up with this kind of negativity in what will be a very stressful but also special time of my life. So, I consulted with my wife, and with her support have decided to kick Caitlin out of our house. As a flatmate without a formal signed rental agreement, she actually has no tenancy rights in my country, though I still opted to give her a month to find a new place as a sign of good faith. Caitlin is throwing a hissy fit saying I'm being unfair, that since she pays rent, she should have a say in the direction of the household, and that we were selfish for having a kid without even telling flatmates. Alex is on the fence, though has expressed that I'm being a bit unfair to Caitlin. Wife, as I said, fully supports me, though she's less annoyed by her behavior than myself if I'm being honest. So yeah, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your peace of mind in your house comes first, and she sounds insufferable. Yeet her. I agree, not the a-hole. As long as no laws are being broken, renting a room in someone's house does not give you the right to dictate how they choose to live. Just because someone is anti-child, anti-vax, anti-pet, or anti-pasta, they don't have the right to expect others to live by their personal viewpoints. It's part of why I am against any laws being made that are based on the religious beliefs of any one set of people, especially if the law is expected to apply to everyone. I don't mean the rules that apply universally of don't steal, don't kill, don't maliciously lie, etc. I'm talking about the my religion says not to get tattoos. So even if your religion says you can, I'm making a law that forces you to live by the rules of my religion, not yours. Kinda stuff. There are two types of child-free people. One just doesn't wish to have children, but they accept that children are a part of life and usually enjoy interacting with kids. The second type hates children, thinks they shouldn't exist, and makes everyone around them miserable. Your flatmate is the latter. If she stayed, she would get even more obnoxious after the baby arrives. I mean, how dare she say you should consult her about your family planning? Kick her out in good conscience, not the a-hole. This is more than that. This woman is a moron. It's one thing to hate being around kids, but you don't slag off the landlord's unborn child if you intend to live there, and act like you should somehow be consulted about their family planning. Totally not the a-hole. Since she pays rent, she should have a say in the direction of the household would apply if you were all renting the place together and were on equal footing, not in a situation where you owned a house and you happen to have 2 spare bedrooms that you're renting out. Also, she was informed in plenty of time, chose to stay anyway, and is now being a prick about it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for fighting for full custody of my kids against their mom? I, 28 male, I'm divorced. My ex-wife, 27 female, who we'll call Brittany, and I decided to do a shared parenting. My current wife and I get them throughout the school year, while she gets every other weekend, and then she gets them majority of the summer while I get them every other weekend. So for the majority of the year, they're living with my wife and I. My kids spent their first summer there and absolutely hated it. They have been begging me to fix it so that they don't have to live with her and her boyfriend during the summer. Her boyfriend, we'll call Steve, 24 male, does not get along well with the kids. The kids have accused him of abuse and neglect on multiple occasions to multiple different people. This is mostly why I got majority of their custody. There have been multiple allegations, including from other family members witnessing this behavior, CPS investigations, etc. Whenever I would bring up a concern with Brittany, she would either not respond or deflect. Even her family thinks she was grasping for straws to make me look bad. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was the day my 6-year-old son called everyone on his tablet begging for food. He got a hold of my mom and said Steve was sleeping, their mom was at work, and that they weren't allowed to leave their room or they'd get in trouble. My mom got hold of my wife, who then called me while I was at work crying, saying the kids were hungry and calling and asking for food. I immediately got a hold of Brittany and demanded an explanation for the situation. She acted like she had no idea what I was talking about and said our son is going through a growth spurt and is just eating a lot more than usual. When my son was home with me again, I asked him about it, and he said that's just how things go at his mom's. He explained that they don't really eat until their mom gets home from work, which is in the evening, and that's another reason they don't want to live there. I filed for emergency custody and full custody. Emergency custody was granted quickly, as Brittany and Steve were technically homeless over the summer and made the kids go through that with them. And yes, I asked her to let me keep the kids until she had her own residence, and she refused. With emergency custody in place, this means the kids do not go to her until we go back to court, but she has visitation. And now she's very angry with me. She spews nasty comments to me here and there. And her last one, she even asked, "Why would you do this to the kids? If you had any concerns, you could have just talked to me." This whole ordeal is largely due to the fact the kids hate it there. They've made the same complaints, and we have had the same concerns. And Brittany and Steve have done nothing to make their home better for them after many chances. This just makes me think it will not get better. I just want my kids to be happy and safe. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and the courts seem to agree. She just doesn't seem to like that things aren't going her way. As for, you could have just talked to me, Opie did, and she excused away starving her own son. She didn't want her like Opie getting a truer second opinion, because the truth was she was being a very neglectful parent. Even her own family doesn't have faith in her ability to be a good parent. Not the a-hole, but why are you posting on AITA? The purpose of the custody hearing is to determine what's in the kid's best interest. If you get sole custody, it's because the court could substantiate the claims of abuse/neglect and deem the house unsafe for your kids. I've been feeling conflicted since the kids missed their mom over the holidays. She hasn't scheduled any visitation and the kids miss her. Bro, 1,000,000 times not the a-hole. Your kids are your number one priority in this. Their experience with a boyfriend is evidence that your kids have unfortunately been exposed to a dangerous environment. Things can only go downhill with that kind of people. I would have fought for full custody from the very beginning, but fortunately it seems nothing big has happened and now it's time to keep your children safe from them, especially this Steve. The courts basically told me since my kids are so young, they don't want to take them away from their mom and have them miss out on time with their mom. It was a lot of fighting back and forth, and a shared parenting plan was what they ultimately came up with. I didn't like the idea either. Next story. Am I the a-hole for cutting my mom's allowance to pay for daycare when she couldn't babysit for me? Last year, my husband, 35 male, and I, 34 female, had our first and last child. We were fortunate enough to be able to stay at home with him for almost a year by staggering our parental leave and vacations. But now that time has run out and we must return to work. I asked my mother, 56 female, if she would be available to watch him during the week and she said no. Fair enough. That's her prerogative. My husband and I researched daycares in the areas where we work and settled on one that came highly recommended. It was expensive though, and that meant cutting down on expenses, like the monthly allowance that we'd been giving my mother. A bit of background to this. My parents were married for 28 years before my father decided that he wanted someone younger and sexier than my mother. For all of those 28 years, my mother had been a stay-at-home mom, then a stay-at-home wife. With my father leaving, she was now meant to survive somehow in a world where she had never really worked. Because when they got married, my father didn't want her to, and because she was raised in a traditional religious family, she did what the head of household wanted. I'm not even going to go into that man's hypocrisy. Either way, he's gone, and even though she got some alimony, she didn't press for as much as she should have. Again, that religious conditioning, and she's struggling. My husband and I have been supplementing my mother's income to a hefty amount every month, which was not an issue, until we had to put baby into daycare and found out just how expensive that was in a very high cost of living area. In light of that, we told her that we would need to cut our allowance in half. We were not planning to start immediately, but would take the financial hit for 3 months to give her time to adjust and move things around. She got upset and told us that we were punishing her for saying no. I told her that was not a case, but it is hard to maintain 2 households virtually by ourselves if we had to pay an exorbitant amount of our salaries to daycare every month for the foreseeable future. She was still angry and asked us to leave. Later, my sister called us upset that we were abandoning mom and making her struggle just because she wouldn't do our bidding. So, I suggested to her that she increase how much she was helping, considering she still lives at home. She called me a freaking witch and hung up on me. So Reddit, am I really the a-hole here? Edited to add, I wanted to answer some recurring questions here. My sister's ability to help is limited and sporadic because she struggles with mental illness. It got much worse in recent years and we're working to get her on disability, but that is a process. I guess that's why I feel bad about a comment I made to my sister because it was a moment of lashing out, when I know that she's in a tough spot through no fault of her own. As for my mom, I will work with her to make sure that she can go back to work, especially given my sister's challenges. My mother's neither lazy nor a leech. Unfortunately, she's been bitten down by being raised in a traditional culture and having it drilled into her what the duty of a wife is. She was then betrayed by everyone when her husband left. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You're not punishing her for saying no. You are being exceedingly generous to give your mother an allowance in the first place, but it is not your responsibility. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And you're still being exceedingly generous to give her half. And if your sister isn't paying at least half of your mom's household expenses, mortgage, food, utilities, etc., then she's got nothing to say in the matter. Which would explain why sister was calling with the insults, since she was being subsidized too. It's possible mom asked sister to pay more. Not the a-hole. You have a small family to take care of. Your mom, at 56, still has plenty of time in which to work. While she might not get a high-paying job, she could still get something unskilled if she chose. Many employers take into account things like, I spent my life raising my kids. That said, knowing nothing else about your sister's situation, it's hard to make a call on her behavior. Many employers take into account things like, I spent my life raising my kids. Yep, I notarized an interview for someone whose kids had flown the nest once. The interviewer all but reworded each question to help the applicant apply them to what they may have had to do around a home, organize for special occasions, etc. Some people honestly don't realize what skills they have. Last story. Am I the a-hole for crying over my dad accidentally calling my daughter his and his wife's child? I, 20, have an 8-month-old daughter. It's just me and her because her dad didn't want anything to do with her. Fine by me, and currently I have zero interest in dating. My dad wasn't exactly an active participant in my upbringing. He met my stepmother when I was 10 and they've since had my 2 brothers, one being only 2 months older than my daughter. I moved in with him because my mother couldn't handle a baby in the house. I'm currently doing my L3 apprenticeship in childcare. I work 35-hour weeks. Not long, but one of the settings is an hour walk plus nearly hour bus ride. So total nearly 2 hours, the other is an hour bus. I'm out usually 6:30 a.m. till 7 p.m. I pay rent, cook for everyone, and do chores. I pay my stepmother to babysit for me as she is a stay-at-home mom. However, in 2 months, my daughter will be able to start the nursery I work in. I know my stepmother has always wanted a daughter. Sometimes I do get jealous or upset how close she is to my daughter. As in, sometimes she won't let me hold her/feed her or walk her. She does apologize afterwards. Says she gets anxious because how young I am. But I'm hoping if I suck it up, I'll be able to afford my own place in a year. My stepmother's sister visited and I overheard my dad refer to my daughter and his son as his and my stepmother's little babies. I waited till step-aunt left and reminded him that he didn't even want to be called granddad. He's not my baby's dad, nor she's the mother. He said, sorry, with how often we look after them, sometimes it does feel like she's our daughter. He's been encouraging me to go to university. I didn't get my math. Doubt I'll get my functional math, so university's out of the question. But he mentioned how he'd be continuing to look after her if I go to university. I said I wouldn't even bother trying to go to uni if he was going to cross a boundary. I did cry. My stepmother said I was overreacting and that I should be happy how close everyone is, / how much they do for me. And sometimes people do form unconscious bonds and thoughts, and since they apologized, I shouldn't have manipulated them. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. As in sometimes she won't let me hold her / feed her or walk her. WTF? She's really crossing the line and must respect some clear boundaries I don't even have to mention. The problem here isn't they sometimes feel like their grandkids are their own children, but actually trying to undermine your role as a parent. Exactly, not the a-hole, but I would seriously start stashing any money you can and get out ASAP. This is not a healthy situation for anyone, but especially you. You're working so hard to provide for your child and they are undermining you. I cut my mother out of my life when she tried that with my baby. You're the parent, OP, not them. Babysitting a child doesn't make them the parents. Had a family friend who kicked her own mom out of her house and did single parenting alone because didn't like that grandma thought she should become the second parent after dad passed in a tragic accident. Then was bringing the kid over to a sister / brother-in-law's house after dude had been accused of some scary stuff. Your stepmom is a babysitter who's acting in highly inappropriate ways with your daughter. Withholding your child from you is especially scary, and your dad referring to your daughter as your stepmom's is also a cause for concern. I would be worried that they might try to use the police / legal system to take your daughter away from you, especially since your stepmom is already espousing concerns about you caring for your own daughter, and implying that you're incapable or incompetent. Given all this together, I'd be seriously concerned about their motives. Not the a-hole.
Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's female friend he might be your best friend but you're not his? Long story short, my husband has one of those female friends. I'll call her Sarah. Her and I get along fine, but every once in a while she'll make a comment or sit a little too close or touch him a lot, or competes with me on how close they are, or how well she knows him. She's one in a big group of about 11 friends. I've talked to my husband about her several times, But it's so many added up micro actions that it's hard to tell her off for one singular thing without looking crazy. Well, this past weekend, the group of friends got together for the first time since we're now all boosted. My husband and I eloped a few weeks ago, and this was the first time most were seeing us since. Sarah came right up and got in our face as the group was congratulating us, to tell my husband how disappointed she was in him for not telling her about our ceremony, not inviting her, not even sending her a photo. He told her nobody except our parents knew. Nobody was invited, and we don't have our professional photos back. This girl started sobbing. How could you do this to her? That she wanted him to be her man of honor when she gets married. She's single, and he didn't even invite her to his. And their friendship now needed some serious TLC to recover. This is in front of the whole group. I couldn't take it anymore and said, he might be your best friend, but you're not his. And this was between me and him. You were not even a consideration. There was so frosty ooze from the crowd, and she left the house. The crowd is split. They were all my husband's friends before I came into the picture, and some think it wasn't called for, and that I should have just let my husband handle it. I was mad in the moment, but now I don't know. Too far? Now for the top comments. Not stay home. She stepped over the line with her sobbing and demands publicly, and she needs TLC? She got a whole relationship in her head that may or may not exist, and your husband needs to draw that line in the sand. Yep, the TLC comments was, I think, what triggered me. The only tender thing I ask for my friend is chicken. Not stay home. I braced myself after I read one of those female friends. But now? Holy hell. Literally en route to see my best friend and his wife. No freaking way did I react that way when they eloped. Now I am as close to her as I am to him. Sounds like she pictured your husband as her fallback guy at least. Sobbing? That is deranged. Not stay home. But I'm curious as to why your husband hasn't distanced himself from someone who doesn't respect your relationship. They don't do things one-on-one anymore, but she's still within the main friend group, so hard not to have her around. He still needs to set boundaries. Her behavior was way out of line. She's honestly acting like your husband is either a fallback person for her or the one who got away. Crap needs to be shut down immediately, and you two need to be a united front about it. Not stay home. She was trying to make your marriage about her and her feelings. Not stay home, and I wish you could see how hard my eyes rolled reading this post. Talk about no boundaries. She's so transparently into your husband it's almost painful. Well, you definitely could have let him handle her, you weren't out of line in the least. This girl needs to know where she stands, and that's well behind you. Nicely done. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister's husband out of my house because of what he did? I, female 34, lost my husband 8 weeks ago. He had cancer and it got treated, then it came back. It was and still is so devastating. I'm trying to stay collected and welcoming to all the supportive family members who come to offer help, despite my constant change in mood due to grief. My sister is the most supportive one, although her husband would act inappropriately sometimes, especially after he told me after the funeral that now I'm burden-free and can live my life, given I was my husband's sole carer. I try to let go of those comments thinking he didn't know better. He, my sister, and my family came to visit last week. They cooked dinner for me and kept me company for a bit. After dinner, my brother-in-law asked for a minute with me inside the kitchen. He started telling about a co-worker of his who's single, and then went on to list everything good about him. I was confused as to why he was telling me all that. He then reached out for his pant pocket and pulled a piece of paper with his co-worker's phone number on it, telling me to give him a call sometime. I was floored. I couldn't really tell if he was joking or what, but he looked serious and kept insisting I take the number. I lost it. I just started yelling at him that my husband just died, and he was out of his mind to try to hook me up with a coworker of his. I tried to explain that it wasn't like that, and that he was just offering me something helpful, but I didn't know what he meant. I called him disrespectful, then yelled at him to get out of my house. My sister and the others ran into the kitchen not knowing what was going on. I told them, then pressured him to leave my house, but my sister asked that I calm down, but I couldn't. He left, then my sister left quietly. After I'd calmed down, I sat with my family, and they said I was right in that what he did was not okay, but I needed to keep in mind that he and my sister helped so much by cooking for me, comforting me and doing so much for me in these difficult times. So I shouldn't have reacted like that, and could have been a little more considerate and graceful. They said kicking him out was too much, and I should call him later and talk things out so I won't ruin my relationship with him and possibly my sister. It's been days and haven't called, and my sister hasn't visited or called, which means she's upset with me. And now I'm beginning to think they're most likely hurt because I acted ungrateful after everything they've done for me. Not stay home. Actions are not balancing each other. It doesn't work like that. It's not as if preparing meals for someone allows you to be inappropriate with them afterwards. Exaggerating here. I prepared a meal for you, and I think you are stupid, by the way. Hey, don't insult me. Well, I cooked for you, remember? Seen elsewhere on AITA today, and somewhat applies. A favor held for ransom is no favor at all. Not stay home. He was way out of line and needed to be told to back off. How cold and rude. You are grieving for your husband, and you may never want to date again. It's only been 8 weeks. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sending you my sincerest condolences. You don't owe anyone an apology. What you did was outright callous. Not stay home. He was clueless and cold and totally lacked empathy. Grief makes us extremely sensible, so of course his rudeness was extra painful. This is where, if you want, there is a room to mend a relationship. If you want. You can call your sister and say that you appreciate everything they have done to support you since your husband's death, but that your brother-in-law's offer was too soon and misguided, and that in grief your reaction was amplified. If he is willing to apologize for his lack of tact, you can apologize for the force of your reaction. You did not overreact. I think he should be the one to make the first gesture towards reconciliation, but he has proven he lacks completely in compassion and sense. So if you feel like it, this could be a way to move past this. Not stay home. I can't tell if your brother-in-law is an actual jerk, or just astoundingly lacking in empathy and social judgment. But either way, his actions were wildly insensitive and inappropriate, and your actions completely understandable. Agreed. It'd be one thing if the coworker runs a support group for widowers, but brother-in-law didn't even specify that, just said it could help. I would never think to shove a phone number into the hands of a recent widow without a really good explanation, and he gave none. My mom is a widower, and it took her 4 years to even contemplate dating again. She has a lot of friends who fulfill her life, so dating isn't top priority for her right now. Next story. Am I the a-hole for buying 2 of the same small car instead of a more practical car? My boyfriend is frustrated I didn't consider his needs. For a few years, I've had a newer Miata as my only car. I found it practical for myself. I've even traveled across country in it twice. My boyfriend doesn't find it as practical. He is 6'2" and finds it small. Plus, he doesn't like to pack light when traveling. It is frustrated at only being able to bring 1 suitcase. Anyway, I wanted a car to take to track days, that I could mod more than my daily driver. I mentioned to my boyfriend that I was shopping around for another car. I wanted something to track, but I also was gonna keep it street legal so he could have a second car. He doesn't have a car of his own, so sometimes things are logistically difficult. I was looking at a few options for cars on Craigslist and then spotted a great deal on a 1997 Miata. It needed some work, but that's my hobby anyway. I jumped on it because that kind of deal doesn't stick around for long, and that same afternoon I bought the car. I got to work on it over the weekend and got it repaired well enough to be drivable. And I'm planning to add a roll cage, suspension upgrades, new sway bars, and new tires. But on Sunday when my boyfriend came back from a weekend trip he was taking, he was really upset to see the car. He was incredulous and bought a second of the same car, this one even smaller. He said he was expecting something full-sized which could fit more than 2 people. He has visitation every month with his kids he had with his ex, and he either has to take them on the bus or during COVID have his ex drive them to him and pick them up. So he was frustrated I didn't get a 5-seater car that could fit the kids along with us. I said I never knew he expected anything but me picking a track day car, picked out primarily to race, and letting him drive whatever it was if he needed to occasionally. But it seemed like he saw me getting the second car as primarily a car for him or our household. He said he wasn't trying to act entitled, but he did expect me to at least be considerate of his situation, and not just be like, me, and go buy a second car that is my favorite car but doesn't consider him at all. Am I the a-hole for buying a second Miata? Now for the comments. So, let me get this straight. You bought your car with your money, and your boyfriend who didn't pay for anything and doesn't have a car but likes the convenience of having one and being driven places by you is mad because you didn't spend your money on a car that he wants so that he can use it to drive around his kids? Alexa, play No Scrubs. Not stay home. Why doesn't he buy a car of his own to cart his kids around in? You needed another car for track day, not another daily rider. Sounds like he should ask you to help him find a fixer-upper and help him fix it up. His crappy life choices are not your responsibility. You're being kind enough to let him use your car. Does he live with you? Not stay home. He doesn't have to like your car. Not stay home. 1, it's your money. 2, it's your car. 3, it fits your needs. 4, he is a boyfriend, not a husband. 5, if he wants a car to fit him plus kids, he can buy one with his own money. Pretty much this. I don't understand people saying everyone sucks here because kids are involved. They have been dating for 2 years but only living together for 3 months. I would never just buy a whole freaking car just for a boyfriend. He wants a family-friendly vehicle or even a vehicle in general. He can buy his own. She's just letting him borrow it if he wants to use it, but she doesn't owe him anything, kids or not. Not stay home. It's your money and your car. If you wanted a car that fit him, he could buy one. Those aren't your kids. You're not responsible for their transportation. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my wife for giving my daughter a picture of my estranged mom for a family tree project? I was really close to my mom growing up, but she cut me off 12 years ago. She was kind of always a cold and awkward person, but she texted me that she didn't want to see me again. She hates my wife more than she loves me. And if she never has to see my wife again, it's worth not seeing me. It hurt like heck, and I had to go to grief counseling. One thing my mom had said was she mourned me like I died, and that I should let her go. I did the same, and I try not to think about her. But sometimes I think about the fact I have a whole family out there and just can't see them. It is a mind screw. Recently, my daughter had a school tree project. She knows the very basics, that my mom is alive, but we don't talk. I figured we'd leave both of my parents off it. Dad walked out. Well, last night my daughter showed it to me, and it had my mom on it. Just seeing her was hard for me, and it was clearly a new picture. I kept it together in front of my daughter, but I asked my wife, and she said she got it off Instagram because she didn't want half of the poster to be empty. I lost it, and said she just hurt me so bad for a freaking poster, and how could she do that? She said I was overreacting, and that my mom still gave birth to me, so she should be there. I called her selfish and heartless, and slept in another room last night. She thinks I overreacted, but I think she crossed a huge boundary. Info. Why does your mother hate your wife more than she loves you? There's a whole backstory here that's missing. And why can't he see any of the rest of his family? They took her side. Sisters cut me off while aunt financially blackmails her kids into not seeing me. Answer the question. There may not be a real reason. My dad's mom hated my mother simply for existing. My grandpa's mom hated my grandma because she basically hated everyone. And a woman across the street brags about how she doesn't see two of her sons because she never liked their wives. Some women are just kind of horrible to the insignificant others. There doesn't have to be a reason. No a-holes here. The real a-hole is the teacher who assigned a project like this. Complete disregard for children's situations such as broken homes, foster care, etc. I suspect to have them present and explain to the class. This project should honestly not exist. It is literally no teacher's business what your home looks like. I can understand your wife wanting your daughter to feel like she does have a family and wanting her to know what her grandmother looks like. I can also understand you wanting your wife to respect the boundaries. She should have spoken to you first about it, and you should have acknowledged that at some point your kid is going to want to know more, and hiding family members from her isn't helpful. Edited to add because people are pressed. My dad taught elementary school for several years. Literally decades later, he is still haunted by some of the familial situations that some of those kids were in. While it sounds great to teach students that family models look different, it should never be done at the expense of a child. You are opening up a can of worms and a barrage of questions that other students now feel entitled to asking when you have someone explain that family member isn't in their life. What if that parent was an abuser to the child? What if the child's home life was bad enough to where they were removed? Why does your child need to know what happened to OP's kid's grandma? As someone who is in the exact same family situation, my mother-in-law's cut off because she didn't want a relationship with my husband if it included me, I would say not stay home. However, as I'm sure you know, it's almost impossible to understand the dynamics of a situation like this unless you've been through it. So you're going to get a lot of YTAs on this post. Since your wife was there for all of this struggle, I'm really surprised that she chose to include your mother's photo. It took my husband and I years of individual and couples counseling to come to peace with our situation. You and your wife might consider a couple of maintenance marriage counseling sessions to work through this. Also, 100% agree with the previous poster that projects like this are awful. So many kids don't have the picture-perfect family, and so many include trauma that this is not worth it. There are better ways to teach kids what it means to be a second cousin once removed. Yes, I always hated these projects in school, since I didn't know my dad, and my mom knew next to nothing about him, so they would always be completely empty in one half. A teacher actually argued with me one time that I had a dad after I told her I didn't. These projects just make anyone without a picture-perfect family feel super awkward and awful. And I love the family I do have, and wouldn't change my upbringing for anything, but those projects still suck. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my husband's brother to be in the delivery room? I'm currently 31 weeks with twins, a boy and a girl. My husband and I are both 21, and we're trying for a baby for about a year before we fell pregnant. I've had a pretty rough pregnancy, and my brother-in-law is a medical student. He's 24, so has taken quite a lot of interest in my pregnancy and future delivery. We've always gotten on well. I've known my husband's family since we were children, so we've pretty much grown up together. A few days ago, my husband told me that my brother-in-law had expressed an interest in being there whilst they gave birth, mainly due to it being beneficial from an educational standpoint to see a natural multiples birth, which is what I'm planning for. I know things can change on that front, but hoping for that. Also, so my husband can have support as I'll have my mom. Worth mentioning that our hospital doesn't have a restriction on the amount of people can be in the delivery room. I said absolutely not. There is no way in hell I'm allowing that. I'm not even really keen on allowing my husband to watch me go through that, let alone his brother. He said it'd be a good experience for him at his degree, and I said that as much as I supported him, my experience of having a pleasant birth was my priority. He got defensive and said he should be allowed to have a support person too, which I suppose I do understand, but I really just feel uncomfortable about it all. He said it was just as much his right as it was mine to have someone there to support him. It basically turned into a huge argument, with his brother and mom being dragged into it too. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I'm actually creeped out that your brother-in-law even wants to be there. There is just something so wrong about it. You're the one who is about to have her vagina ripped apart while two humans shove their head and shoulders through it. What you say goes. Do not give in on this. Congratulations on having twins, and I wish you a smooth labor and delivery. Thank you so much. Just gonna hop on here and say I see tons of these posts. And it always takes me back to Grey's Anatomy when Callie was disagreeing with Arizona and Mark ganging up on her with the voting. So she gives the baby a vote. Since she carries baby, she votes for baby. And since her vagina is gonna push said human out, it gets extra special vagina vote. So she outvoted them. Tell him if that he is willing to get naked, lay on the dining room table, grab his ankles, and let your dad stare at his a-hole for an hour. Then you will think about getting his brother in the delivery room. Birth is hard enough. Don't let him bully you into this. The only person who's important during birth is the one doing it. And as a doctor, his brother should know that a patient's desire trumps her extended family's. I would also let him know this decision is already final. And if he brings it up again or tries to sneak him in during, that he will not be welcome in the delivery room either. Not stay home. And if he thinks he needs a support person for him, then he needs to not be in the delivery room. His logic doesn't make sense. If his brother-in-law is there to support your hubby, then he won't be able to focus on learning. If his brother-in-law is there to learn, then he won't be able to focus on supporting hubby. Please note that I'm saying this as a father who was in the delivery room. You want as few people in the room as possible to avoid getting in the way if something goes sideways. In addition, most doctors aren't keen on having a medical student who is also family there because they might try to second-guess treatment and get in the way. If you really need an out, send a message to your birthing doctor and tell them to make a statement that they do not want anyone besides mom and dad in the room during the birth. That's another one of my concerns, actually. I love my brother-in-law, but he's a complete know-it-all. There's not a doubt in my mind that he'd try and instruct the doctors in some way. I'd be mortified. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my husband for the burnt beefsteak I cooked for him? With a little update. My husband 30 and I 32 keep our finances separate and we do not share anything until and unless there's an agreement. He wants it this way and I'm okay with that, although he can be strict with what's his and what's mine. Anyways, 2 days ago I brought home a raw steak cut. It asked me to take time off work and work from home to cook it for him, and I said okay since he was a bit sick and exhausted. I prepared a steak and added all ingredients together, then put it inside the oven, then stopped by the bedroom where he was lying in bed playing on his phone, and told him I had to go back to work and the steak was in the oven and he needed to turn it off in exactly 10 minutes so it wouldn't get overcooked since he hates it overcooked. 40 minutes go by and my husband rushes in freaking out telling me he just checked on the steak and it was completely burnt. He asked why I didn't turn off the oven 10 minutes after I notified him, and he says to me that he was busy harvesting the strawberries in the game he was playing. I just shrug and tell him this is on him then for being on his phone distracted and letting the meat burn. But he says to me, well, no doubt it's your fault because when you start something, you finish it and you were supposed to finish cooking the steak. I immediately reminded him I agreed to take valuable time off work to cook for him when I didn't have to and when he was playing on his phone, so he should be grateful. He gets more upset and says that I need to pay X amount for the steak since I bought it from the butchers, so it's high quality and like the supermarket. But I said no, this is not my responsibility. He then tells me that yes it is, and that I should think of it as I took money from his salary and burned it. Not to mention that he gets no dinner, therefore I owe him. I lash at him telling him no and get out of my office so I could finish my work, since my time is valuable as well as his precious steak and he was wasting it. He keeps insisting I pay for the price of the steak and even said I was wrong for refusing to take responsibility and correct my mistake and just pay. Because he wants to buy another cut of steak but does not plan on using his money again, because why should he? He wasn't the one who cooked and let the steak burn. Am I the a-hole? Added to explain that separate finances is his idea, and the reason for that is that he was married to a woman out of the US, and she took all his money and belongings once they got separated. In an illegal way, of course, thus he now feels uncomfortable to share finances with another partner, which like I said is okay with me since I have many married friends with separate finances who are living happily. Not a a-hole. Tell him to eat the freaking strawberries he was busy harvesting. Opie, stop babying him. Stop taking care of him. Stop doing special favors. He does not value you. This argument is ridiculous. He was playing on his phone and wanted you to cook for him? Why did you say yes? It sounds like your husband is used to getting what he wants. When was the last time he did something considerate for you? Not today, Hall, but maybe it's time for some counseling for you to work and why you feel it's okay for him to make demands of you while you were working. I'd send him a bill for the time it took out of work to prep his steak and argue with him, if he's going to be like that. Separate finances is one thing. This nickel and dime nonsense doesn't sound sustainable. How long are you going to give him to decide that you're not his ex? Oh boy, where to start? 1. Incapable of recognizing he made a mistake. 2. Incapable of completing a simple task because he was doing something inconsequential. 3. Trying to flip blame on you. 4. Incapable of acknowledging the importance of your work and your time, much less respecting it. 5. Am less bothered by your division of finances, and more concerned by how he penny pinches when it benefits him. Honestly, it seems you should go for a walk by yourself and take a step back, to carefully reevaluate what other red flags you have ignored, and if this way of life is worth it. Don't plan on potential plan based of what's already there. Agreed. He's deflecting anything bad to Opie while failing to respect her time at work. Eek. When you divorce the strawberry harvesting and grateful for your efforts and unable to tell time aficionado of fine beef products, you have to get the best lawyer you can afford, because he is going to try so hard to nickel and dime you. Make him sorry. Not today, Hall, and I'm sorry you are unappreciated. Go out and buy yourself a personal-sized fine steak and make it yourself. And don't share. Little update. Too many people on here commenting and I can't read every single comment. But I just wanted to say that I showed my husband a thread and he wanted to tell you guys something. But I didn't let him touch the phone and type by himself because I know how rude he can be online. So I'm just presenting a more civil version of what he wanted to say. He says that he thinks the comments he's seen are being unfair to him and completely pushing aside the fact that A, paid money for a steak cut, and B, that I agreed to cook, and so he thinks I should have finished the favor. He also says that I left out a part where I suggested he get a cheaper steak from the supermarket. I did, which was offensive because he spends time driving to the butcher's and money to buy a fresh steak, and eating at a steakhouse is expensive. Also, he says to the top comment that he doesn't like freaking strawberries. That is why I can't eat them. I think that's enough. He's pressuring me to give him my phone so he could type out what he wants to say, but I believe all the relevant info is here. I'll update if possible. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for sternly telling my wife I get to invite whoever I want whenever I want to my house? My wife is a stay-at-home mom while I work full-time. We have 2 kids that I help do 50% of their care while she handles cooking and cleaning and the other 50% of childcare as well. I'm sociable by nature and I'm fast at making friends, whether at work or outside of it. The problem my wife has is that I invite friends and co-workers, guests, over every few days to my house for dinner or lunch. Restaurants aren't an option now due to budget. My wife said she has to cook for my guests, though I never tell her to cook this or that, nor ever complain about her choice of meals because it depends. The guests eat whatever she feels like cooking, yet she complains that she has to cook for extra people, which takes effort and time. And also, since I sit with the guests, then she has to serve them by bringing coffee, / preparing the table, / etc. since I told her I don't do these chores. But I thought that since this is her area of responsibilities, then where's the problem? I invited few guests for Thanksgiving, 6 people, and when she found out, she lost it, saying I should have consulted her first. I said there was no need, because they just eat whatever she cooks, no problem. But she said she wasn't going to agree to cook large portion and for 6 extra people. Aside from serving them and handling hosting, that is too much for her. I told her she was making a big deal out of it, and should just stop freaking out over a few extra plates and glasses and whatnot. She said she didn't agree, but then I eventually had guests over, and after they left, she started yelling at me saying she was not minded my guests' server, and that I should stop having them over. That is when I told her very sternly that it's my house, and I get to invite whoever I want whenever I please, and called her unreasonable to react like that, instead of being welcoming to the people who wanted to spend time with us, and like her family cut us off completely. But she shouted that she was done with being on my beck and call, and having to be forced to take care of my guests in terms of serving and cooking, just because it's her part of chores. That if I want to continue to have guests over, then I'll have to step up and cook for them myself, which I thought was quite rude and unfair for her. We went back and forth in this argument, and she then stopped talking to me and started giving me the silent treatment, making me feel like I'd committed some sin by having guests over. Info. I just wanted to explain that my wife's main issue isn't about cooking itself, but having to cook extra for the guests, which is understandable, and I try to compromise by suggesting we set time limits for when my guests visit to avoid having to include them in dinners and whatnot. It also suggested we limit the frequency of those visits. But she stated she will still have an issue with it, and gave me the options of either handling the hosting myself, or just completely stop having them over or take them out to restaurants. But then restaurants consume money, and she was the one who advised against going to restaurants. Now for the comments. Bro, you're the a-hole, especially if you aren't helping. You're doubling or tripling her workload of keeping a regular house while you sit on your butt, while expecting her to take up all the slack of meeting the expectations of a proper host. It's also apparent that you don't cook, because there is a significant difference in cooking for, let's say, 4 people, and cooking for 10 people. Just because they will eat what you cook doesn't mean that you have nearly triple the amount she needs to make. And then on top of that, it made more complicated as many dishes take longer to prepare properly if you need to make large quantities. Never mind all the dishes and extra work after the meal, which, let me guess, you don't help with those either. Seriously, if you don't understand the complexity of the work she does, you can shut the hell up or do it yourself. Because I'm certain if she refused to feed your guests, you'd be the first to decry how poorly she's behaving as a wife and hostess. Oh wait, she did threaten that. that now you are decrying it's her responsibility. Where do you think the food she is cooking anyway comes from? Do you believe she has the power of Jesus and is able to feed 10 people from the amount of food that would normally only feed 4? Do you even know how to use the oven and stove? The sin isn't having guests over. The sin is not understanding the work your wife does in the household and not understanding that while all you do is eat the food. How much work goes into preparing a good meal, being a good host, and all the cleanup afterwards. And then when your wife explains it to you being too much of an a-hole to figure out that feeding all of your friend is a lot of extra work, even if she isn't changing the menu for the day. If you don't even have the ability to cook at her level for 10 plus people at a time, you definitely better shut the hell up. Your wife is completely in the right here. Jesus, man. Absolutely you're the a-hole. How did you do a Reddit post from 1953? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for tricking my husband to coming to a school event and inviting her to my house? My mother and husband hate each other. That's the most basic way to put it. Truth is that my husband feels that he is treated as less than my other sibling spouses because of his skin color, and my mother feels that he is way too dumb for my standards. However, I personally feel that my mother does not show any favoritism or harsh treatment of my husband. Because of this, my husband cannot stand my mother and has recently begun to even be in the same room as her. Oh, your mom's going to be at Christmas. I'm going to a friend's house. Oh, your mom's going to the kids' event? I'll just stay at home. Frankly, it's insanely demoralizing for me. And I hate my husband when he backs out of something just because my mom is going to be there. And it's worse when he demands that my mom not go because he wants to be there. In my opinion, he's the one with a big issue. He should be the one to leave the kids' events. Recently, one of my kids was having a big football match and he wanted his father there. My mother also wanted to be there, so I tried telling my son that he couldn't have his father there. He was adamant, so I told my husband that my mother was not going to be there. He arrives, and obviously so does my mother, and they are immediately bickering. He makes a comment about how racist my mother is, and then she fires back saying she was never racist. I told them to shut up and sent my husband to sit somewhere else for a while. I decided that since the game ended late, I'll bring my mom back to my home and make her some dinner. My husband threw a hissy fit over this, and was screaming about me always choosing my mother over him. And I was like, of freaking course I'm going to put my mother over my husband. She's the woman who single-handedly raised me and 3 other kids. She's literally a goddess for not giving some of us for adoption. My husband stormed out and I'm left wondering if I've done something wrong. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. She thinks it's stupid. Why? Your son asked for his dad to be there, not your mother. Sounds like you're the one with a favoritism issue, considering you decided to have mom there anyway. Edit. I skipped over the last part. Holy hell. She's a goddess for not giving you or your siblings for adoption? Get your head out of your mother's bottom. Yes, Opie's drunk a narcissist Kool-Aid. Either that or the mother wrote this. Info. Why and how does your mother's wish take precedence over your son and your husband? This entire post is fully insane, but this one is truly bewildering. Your son wants his dad there, not his grandma. So why is she trying to uninvite dad instead of grandma? I truly hope her poor husband escapes her and takes the kids too.